Hello friends, James Corbett here, CorbettReport.com. As I come to you in Japan, it is the 6th of June 2017, still the 5th of June back in the Chantilly, Virginia area, where the Bilderberg Group has just wrapped up its 65th meeting that has taken place since 1954. And if you go to bilderbergmeetings.org, you can get the official details about this latest meeting, including the press release that Bilderberg now issues before each meeting, including the key topics for discussion. 13 topics on this official agenda this year. The Trump administration, a progress report. Transatlantic relations, options and scenarios. The Transatlantic Defense Alliance, bullets, bites, and bucks. The direction of the EU. Can globalization be slowed down? Jobs, income, and unrealized expectations. The war on information. Why is populism growing? Russia in the international order. The Near East, nuclear proliferation, China, and current events. So a lot of things that I think we would expect them to be talking about, some which might raise an eyebrow, and current events, which of course could mean anything, including, of course, the London incident that took place while they were meeting and other such things. So that is what is on the official meeting agenda. And as always, there's the participants list, the official list of participants, where they talk about all of the people who will be, who were attending, or at least the people that they will admit were attending this conference. And one thing that particularly sticks out from this participant list is H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor under President Trump. Wilbur Ross, a.k.a. the Rothschild banker, who is Secretary of Commerce for Trump. You have Christopher Liddell, who is an assistant to President Trump and Director of Strategic Initiatives. And you have Nadia Shadlow, the Deputy Assistant to President Trump on the National Security Council. That, I believe, and I've really looked for this, but I believe this is the largest White House contingent that has ever attended a Bilderberg meeting. So, very interesting, especially in light of the press release indicating that the number one topic of discussion would be the Trump administration, a progress report. Trump gets his report card from Bilderberg and has no less than four representatives there to personally receive that report card and find out what the rest of the agenda for the rest of the year is. And I say no less than four because there may, in fact, be more representatives of the Trump administration that were at this meeting. We don't really know because, of course, this is not the complete list of attendees. And we know that for sure, for example, from the excellent reporting of Charlie Skelton. People might know he's been writing about Bilderberg for The Guardian for, I believe, 8 years now, maybe 8 or 9, something like that. He's been reporting on them since Greece, I believe, several years ago. And he did it initially as something of a lark to write something humorous about them, and then discovered, oh no, this really is a real shadowy, secretive group that really is, well, doing whatever they're doing behind closed doors and really do crack down on people. So he now does excellent work on Bilderberg, and this is another example of that. This is why it's important to be taking pictures of these cockroaches scuttling into the meeting, because you get to find out little gems like this. This is Spanish Economy Minister Luis de Guindos on the left here, an official participant in this meeting, according to the official list. Here we go, Minister of Economy, Industry, and Competitiveness of Spain. But on the right, who is that? That looks awfully like Fernando Jimenez Latorre, doesn't it? Looks exactly the same as Fernando Jimenez Latorre. And yet, Fernando Jimenez Latorre is signally not on this list of attendees. Who is Fernando Jimenez Latorre? Oh, an executive director at the World Bank. But don't worry, the World Bank assures us that he was not in attendance at this meeting, even though he was photographed going into the meeting. So, again, excellent work by Charlie Skelton getting that nugget out. And that, again, that's just one example of someone that we can point to who was in attendance at this meeting, who was not officially on the list. So with that in mind, of course, I don't think I need to tell the Corbett Report listeners this, but of course, we have to take this official press release with the official topics and the official participant list with a gigantic grain of salt, because of course they're not going to be telling us the whole truth about what's going on behind these closed doors. The fact... probably the smartest, from a PR perspective, the smartest thing Bilderberg ever did was start bilderbergmeetings.org and release this official press release with the topics and the participants, because that has absolutely assured that not only the mainstream, but a lot of the alternative media has just basically shrugged their shoulders and, well, there's not much going on. And that was definitely reflected in the fact that last time these cretins were meeting at Chantilly, there was thousands of people showed up. This time... maybe a few dozen, it looked like. Very few people seem interested in this, and I think that's probably at least partly because, oh, don't worry, guys, Trump is in charge of the country now, so, and he's fighting the globalists, right? Even though he said he's a globalist. And has more participants, more people meeting at Bilderberg than any other administration in history. But, you know, I'm sure that's, there's nothing to see there, right? So, no, of course, we cannot take them at face value, and we cannot let them set the agenda of what we will be talking about in relation to Bilderberg. Now, here's the other frustrating part about Bilderberg these days, and the reason why I didn't do a pre-Bilderberg preview video, I'm doing a wrap-up video, because I was waiting to see if any intel whatsoever about what was being discussed in Bilderberg itself, real intel from the inside, came out this year. But no, nothing so far, nothing at all. In fact, this has been the sad trend of the last several years of Bilderberg. There's been people who have been doing the yeoman work of showing up and getting the photographs and trying to interview people at the airport and getting the no comment, the obligatory no comment from the Bilderberg attendees. So that's been going on. But in terms of actual information about what's going on in Bilderberg, really nothing. And that is a change, because back in the days of people like Jim Tucker, there really were, at least from some years, there really was actual real intelligence going on. I've pointed out in the past some of the things that we've gotten out from Bilderberg back in the days when people actually had some sort of sources, either in the group or in the hotel staff or what have you, getting out some of the information, like the fact that the Iraq War that was discussed at the 2002 meeting, but it was shelved until 2003. It was slotted for spring 2003, and lo and behold, that's exactly when it took place. There has been actual real intelligence that has come out of Bilderberg in the past. I haven't seen anything about any actual intelligence coming out of Bilderberg in the last several years. So it is getting less and less useful from that perspective. In fact, one of the most interesting things that has been brought up in relation to this year's Bilderberg is not even something that's about Bilderberg per se, but about a satellite meeting, as it were, that will be taking place in the next couple of days. That was discussed by Mark Anderson of AmericanFreePress.net on Press for Truth.
One of the ones, Dan, that's not covered and is not on their official agenda is the Global Cities program. The Chicago Council on Global Affairs, a bird of a feather ally with Bilderberg, is meeting June 7th through 9 at the Chicago Art Institute. I covered their meeting last year because I couldn't go to Bilderberg in Dresden, Germany, and that was their first. This is their second Global Cities Forum, and it was covered today, June 2nd, at the ukcolumn.org. Explicit quotes that the Global Cities program is about having the cities network together to basically secede from the nation states that they inhabit. So the people within Bilderberg orbit, Bilderberg's part of a larger network, are looking at cities as being quasi-independent to where they don't have to obey their home nations. They can embrace climate change and embrace the carbon credits and all these things that are supposed to counteract so-called man-made climate change, embrace that even if the national leader doesn't. They can embrace sanctuary cities even if the national leader of their home nation wants border controls. So it's sort of a form of ideological and operational secession. Mm-hmm.
All right, please do watch that full interview. In fact, watch all of the work that Dan was doing over at Press for Truth. Lots of interesting interviews and perspectives on his YouTube channel, which will be in the links in the show notes, of course. But there you go. I think there's two very interesting and important points that are raised here by Mark Anderson. One of them is that, yes, this idea of cities, in a sense, seceding from, or at least acting over and above the national governments that people fixate on when they think about politics, is actually demonstrably happening. I mean, we've seen New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio coming out and affirming the New York City's plan to carry out the Paris Climate Agreement, regardless of what Trump and his administration want to do. So they're going to honor their commitments now spurned by the federal government so that they can adjust the global thermostat to that exact 1.5 degrees Celsius global average temperature rise over the next 50 years. I mean, come on. What such nonsense. But at any rate, this is exactly what Mark Anderson was talking about there. The fact that the mayors of these so-called global cities are going to become the international global actors of the future, more so than prime ministers or presidents, the prime ministerial or presidential puppets. And the other important point that Mark Anderson was talking about there was the fact that this is going to be a Chicago Council on Global Affairs meeting starting June 7th. That's tomorrow for me here in Japan, running through to June 9th in Chicago. If you haven't heard of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, it's because they used to be called the Chicago Council on Foreign Relations, but they had to change their name. I guess the CFR, the mothership, didn't like the confusion. I don't know. But anyway, they've changed their name to the Council on Global Affairs because they are a globalist think tank exactly in the CFR mold, and in fact was created in 1922 and it was directed by Adlai Stevenson and other insiders for many years. I mean, it is a globalist institution through and through, and they run their own little get-together. This year it's going to be right after Bilderberg. Funny that. And they're going to be talking exactly about this idea of open cities, closed borders, response to globalization and cultural evolution, the future economy. All of these globalist ideas are going to be talked about here and forwarded in the context of this idea of global cities. The idea that cities are going to be the new transnational actors. That's an important concept. And the other, I guess, the bigger picture here that Mark is talking about is that it's not just Bilderberg. Of course, it is not just Bilderberg. Yes, Bilderberg is an important meeting, and there is, I'm sure, some very important things that are discussed behind closed doors. And, I mean, even if this is really what they really talked about, can anyone really believe that what happens in the open meeting is the most important part of Bilderberg? No, of course, it's all the little discussions that happen between participants in closed room meetings after the event and in between time and all of that. And that just carries on. It carries on throughout the year in a number of different fora that take place all over the world in different places. And this is likely to be the first one on at least some of those Bilderberg attendees' schedule, the Chicago Council on Global Affairs meeting on June 7th. So it's a traveling party that goes on all year round, and so to focus on Bilderberg as the only thing that we should be thinking about, of course, is wrongheaded in and of itself, and it just shows that there's a much larger agenda that's unfolding for a very long time. So Bilderberg 2017 has come and gone. What really happened? Well, we don't really know. There isn't really any solid info whatsoever about what really happened behind those closed doors, other than what the Bilderberg group themselves have told us. And you're not going to see a lot of this analysis really coming out through the phony controlled alt media at this point. At least as we know, the phony controlled left alt media went completely to sleep for the Obama years and didn't care about any of this type of stuff. And now we're going to watch the phony controlled right alt media go to sleep and not care about any of this stuff because it's Trump in charge. And the only thing to discuss is, what are the Bilderbergers going to do to combat Trump? I was on one of these phony alt-right media outlets recently where just to see what their coverage of Bilderberg was like. And it was absolutely uproariously funny to see the commenters talking about how, Trump is going to shut down Bilderberg and, he's got them in Chantilly. It's right within arm's reach of the FBI. He's going to get these bums and lock them up. Ha, 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 ha. Oddly enough, that didn't happen. In fact, the meeting went off without a hitch with the largest White House contingent in history. Funny that. Funny how that doesn't happen. Funny how that won't change the perspective or minds of any of these Trump supporters who believe that he's doing something to crack down on Bilderberg by attending Bilderberg with all of his advisors and staff. All right, so anyway, that's Bilderberg 2017. I'm looking forward to see if any information does leak out after the fact, but at any rate, we're going to start seeing the continuation of the the year-round, 24/7 globalist agenda that unfolds in all sorts of meetings throughout the year. So let's start focusing on some of these. And if there are people in the Chicago area or people who are interested in taking a closer look at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs and their meeting, that might be a good place to start. And of course, any other meetings throughout the year, let's use the comment section of this video to compile a list of some of these meetings that we should be keeping our eye on in addition to Bilderberg. Anyway, that's going to do it for Bilderberg 2017 for now. This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.